To the technical group, sharing Maureen O'Sullivan and Deputy Finian McGrath.
Gormagad Ken Corlin. Capam Gwil she Jarfa Gwil and Billy Shaw Flay Gwyn in you. You know, being Billy Egg Sula, Galora Gwyn and Gwynch la Cursi Politicul, Agus Cursi Academy. So Capam Gwil she Tovak Tokamin Chance Gwyn Kind Fe Cursi Ella. Cursi Gwyn la Shandula and Tua Agus you know doing Galera Agus and Gaila Tha Adrin. So Wekus Hig Chuck the Dollar Robert Dowds, Tish Gwil Disporic Diffrula Gwyn in you. There's absolutely no doubt that we have a wonderful countryside, from woods, lakes, rivers, mountains, the cliffs, the seas, our offshore islands. And I think we're very fortunate that we live in a country of such spectacular beauty. Our landscape, as we know, has inspired so many poets and dramatists and novelists and artists and musicians who cover all aspects, whether it's the kind of grim reality that the likes of Patrick Kavanagh wrote about in Stony Grey Soil and The Laugh from My Love You Thieved, or the more kind of romantic ideas that the likes of Yeats had in The Wild Swans of Cool and Lake Isle of Innisfree. I think the scenery is not just for tourists or artists, valuable and all as that is, and for our economy, it's also for us too. And I was very fortunate that my late parents had the view that you had to know your own country first, and made sure that I saw practically, well, I think every county in Ireland before they would encourage me to go abroad. And I think the recent competition, I think the Irish Times had about, you know, places in Ireland, places for holiday, I thought it brought out a lot of interest from people who really value our countryside. Cogardas to Loophead, that they won the competition. I had been trying for Cape Clear Island as the best island, but they lost out to Inishbuffin. And we know about the range of television programmes about walkways. T.G. Carr had an interesting one recently, and again they were using the public right-of-ways. So that public right-of-way is our form of access, and once that right-of-way is created and it's registered, then it can't be reversed. But I think part of the problem, as Deputy Dowds has pointed out, is the process of registration, which can be quite onerous and take a long time and be challenged by landowners. And of course we can't talk about land in Ireland without being very conscious of our history and our relationship with land. And you know, the Celtic system is very interesting in the way in which the land was held by the chieftain for the clan for that chieftain's lifetime, and there was no direct, you know, descendancy there. It was through the Derib Finna, and then the way in which it was all taken over by the plantations, culminating in the Cromwellian plantation, which led to over 90% of the land of Ireland being owned by a very small minority of the population. And we know where that led to with the big house and the lack of access for ordinary people to land, and tenants being evicted from their land. So it's kind of ironic that today we're still talking about access to Irish land for Irish people. There have been many changes through the years, but we still hear of landowners denying access to responsible people, and court cases where people are trying to determine access to what was historically perhaps a public right-of-way, and that has been a costly business for walkers and hikers who have had to go to court, and some of those cases are still ongoing with very significant costs to the people involved. But I do want to acknowledge those landowners who allow access, who have facilitated it and have actively encouraged it, and those people who have availed of it and have respected that, you know, whether it was opening and closing gates. And it's important, I think, to acknowledge the work of the National Parks, the Wildlife Service lands, Creelta Forest, the work of Waterways Ireland, the Irish Wildlife Trust, and the other organisations that give access and encouragement to walking routes. And I think the Sliana Shlointe initiative was a really great one by the Irish Heart Foundation. I think we're all aware of the benefits of walking and being out in the fresh air, and this bill is about giving us wider opportunities and has to be supported even from that angle. I think we know also that walking is economical. In a lot of ways it's very lucrative. I was struck by a statistic from Fulch, Ireland, that our walks attract 4 times as many tourists as our golf courses. There's lots of statistics from other countries of what is generated for them through nature-based tourism, and of course allied to that are the job opportunities which others have pointed out. We've fallen behind on the range of walking routes due to a variety of reasons, some of which is access being denied by landowners. I think the bill would increase recreational walking. We know the health benefits, the economic benefits and the social benefits. So I do very much support greater access to the countryside as is proposed, and greater encouragement for people to access the countryside so that everyone can enjoy and reap those benefits. But at the same time protect our countryside and protect those whose livelihoods are based on it, and also give adequate protection for our wildlife, including Bird life. Now, I'm very much on the record when it comes to animal welfare and my loathing of the deliberate and wanton cruelty to animals. So I want to recognise those farmers who have similar views and are fed up with hunts and other people trespassing on their farms in pursuit of hares or foxes or badgers. Access to the countryside, it has to be about, I think, equality of access, and I don't think it should be dependent on a person's means. But underlying that is the principle of respect for the countryside, for nature, for animal life and for wildlife. I understand the rationale behind the bill to amend our land access legislation. I hadn't realised until I read into this that our legislation is so restrictive and that our neighbours in Scotland, England and Wales have all relaxed laws on the land issue. And I listened to what Deputy O'Keefe was saying and respect his very wide knowledge in this particular area. The bill, most certainly, it's not about walkers demanding the right to trample our cultivated land where crops are growing. It's about landowners also being protected from personal injury claims and other forms of litigation, because the recreational walker would know that they're entering the land at their own risk. I think there's a very specific role in the bill for county councils to designate access land which would be used for recreational purposes, and lands, the area then that lands would not be considered, and the process of appeal. One problematic area is that of compensation, and I don't think that money should enter into this direct payment to somebody for access to land. There's just a couple of other points here, and one is it comes from, I've been involved with the Irish Wildlife Trust, so I support their call for management plans for our special areas of conservation and special protection areas to go along with the strong protection that they have in land. And part of that would be signage in places like Ireland's Eye at Howth and the Saltee Islands. I think there's also, as they say, the need for criteria for the status of natural heritage areas. The Trust are calling for a survey of all sites to determine their current status and management plans. There are examples where that's needed, for example, the Royal and the Grand Canals, neither of which I believe has legal protection. We also don't have a process whereby a local authority can designate an area of land or country important for biodiversity, which is needed to protect the small sites that have rare species or important habitats that don't qualify for the status of natural heritage or special area of conservation, places like small woodlands and wetlands. I think the greater access is vital to improve our understanding of our natural environment, but it comes to rights and responsibilities. And there's also work that the Irish Birdwatch Ireland have done, and I think they have very interesting suggestions about consultation. So I think rights and responsibilities, consultation, the local authority, the landowner, local people who have knowledge, and also the experts in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Just over